immediately is probably better.
I see that the like you said, when you deploy the decoy, it comes straight off the player, only goes a certain distance from the player, right? So yeah. So it seems like it would be good if you kind of like if you were running around the platform and you deployed the decoy,
or
if
it like dropped.
If it would continue to kind of drift around the platform, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like it kind of slides across.
It could like run around the platform or have a little bit of continued momentum.
Yeah.
Have gravity or whatever if it was close enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is one of those things when it comes to game design where you're like, it sounded good, but then it's not really helping me a lot. And then you got to experiment a lot with this and try to make it work.
Or maybe if you were running, maybe the decoy doesn't deploy all the way out. Like if you're running, the decoy only deploys like a certain distance or something. But if you're stopped and you deploy, then you deploy the decoy all the way out to its fullest extent. Does that make sense? That way, if you're running and you deploy the decoy trails behind you, and then
but if you're stopped, then it fires out.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, you could drop it while you're moving at a certain velocity.
Yeah.
So yeah, while you're jumping, or if you're running around, it would drop. Oh, wait, or you can just get killed. Well, it helps if you have a decoy. But then then you fire it out.
Yeah.
I getcha. Yeah, could be. I'll play with it. Anyways, I'll consider some other options. I'm going to commit what we've got today, and then puzzle through it a little bit more.
Okay. But I can definitely see what you're saying, though, because here's a feature that's been added. It serves a specific purpose, but it doesn't feel...
Yeah, it doesn't feel like
finished.
It's helping me a lot.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I would say it needs to definitely have the missile track it as soon as you drop it. But the other thing is, how often does the rocket launcher fire missiles? Maybe a decoy could survive for more than one missile to give you a bigger window. That would help.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Could also, I wasn't sure about whether the decoys should have infinite life or limited life. So yeah, that's a good question too. So decoys, I definitely think that decoys should immediately attract whatever missiles are in the neighborhood. Because you can get into scenarios you got more than one following you, and they should all go for the decoy, the nearest decoy.
Well, on the initial deploy, like when you first come across decoys, it would make sense that they would have sort of an infinite life. And then as you progress and become more accustomed to using decoys, then now to increase the complexity, you have them have a limited life. Right?
Nope.
So they don't...
adding even more complexity to the game.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, now we're going to have to introduce help that tells you how to play. Because now your decoys don't last as long.
Well, I wouldn't think so. I mean, I would think in the beginning your decoy would just last, right? Because it's kind of a new thing, and you're like, okay, cool, I can do these decoys. And then the first time you use it and it's limited life, then you would kind of get that. What happened? Oh, my decoys aren't lasting as long now, and you just kind of intuitively get it.
Yeah, or you could give like a couple different kind of decoy art. This art that I'm doing here is real basic, but you could have like an art that sort of implies that the decoy's got unlimited life.
Gotcha.
Or it's like hardened or something.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is the point where I would not take this game much further, because then you have to start exploring the art, which says a lot about what's going on. Because you want to give people a clue. Either got to tell them or give them some kind of clue. I agree with what you're saying in terms of like you can have two different kinds of decoys. But if people don't realize how it's going to behave, they would get frustrated. They're like, I don't know if this decoy is going to protect me for 3 hits or forever.
Right. Oh, yeah. Right. I see. They need some sort of visual signal or some sort of way to know.
Feedback, so they're not like confused. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get cruising on this next thing here, so we can get through this. I want to help people understand what's going on with vector math as far as like aiming and tracking and doing all that kind of stuff. So the demo that I'm showing you here is going to be in a subfolder of the project. They need to be fed, and it's going to be under vector math samples. And currently there's a project under here called Simple Projectile, which we're looking at. And then given that we have enough time, which I think we will, we're going to duplicate this, and together we are going to add a projectile that hums. Currently, we're going to add a projectile to this turret that we see turning back and forth that simply fires. So I've already written part of the code that I can walk through, and then we'll write together the next part that fires the projectile, and then we'll switch it over and we'll create a copy and make that projectile homing so that it keeps trying to hit this as it goes by.
And just to make sure, that, and I know you probably just said this, but we are isolating a specific piece of the game so that we can focus in on the details of how it works.
Right. I wanted to take this completely out of the context of the game so that I can, what this allows me to do is not only show you everything in one place, but it also lets me ignore some of the things that I did in the game. Mm-hmm. You'll notice that in the piece I'm going to show you here, there's no safety code. There's no code that says, does the object still exist? Is the game still running? No, this is a very naive approach. It just assumes like things are going to run forever. So it's a one-file example. If we if we ignore build settings and config Lua, which are sort of, they always come along for the ride, and we just focus on the code. All the code for this example is in a file main Lua. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you can read it. The first thing is it uses the Math2D plugin, which I released last week. You can get this. You can get the documentation by going to the store page and clicking on the Math2D plugin page and the docs link from there. And I'll share a link with Charles for the show just to point people in the right direction to this. But you just simply require it like you would normally would. Require plugin Math2D, and you need to have a little statement in build settings that says, I want to use the plugin. All of that stuff's in the documentation you can find on my site from the link. It's quite straightforward. Up here at the top, just for ease of use, I've created two variables, CX and CY, which stand for the center X and center Y of the screen, because I don't like typing display content center X every time I want to put something in the center of the screen. I've also forward declared three functions: move target left, move target right, and shoot. Now, move target left and right, their job is to move the green dot, which is our target, from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, just back and forth. And what they are, first of all, the target is nothing more than a circle placed 200 pixels to the right of the center of the screen and 100 pixels above the center. So it's initially placed right over here before it starts running. And then I change the color to green, so that code's very, very straightforward. And then I have these two functions, which I forward declared, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And inside of each of them is simply a transition function. And the transition says whatever object is passed in, make the X position to whatever I'm supposed to, so the center of the screen minus 200 pixels or plus 200 pixels, so the right side or the left side, or actually that would be the left or the right side. It takes 8,000 milliseconds, 8 seconds, to transition from one point on the screen to the next. And the onComplete callback, the listener, is simply the opposite direction function. And this is why I had to forward declare these. I basically created a local variable, but I didn't have anything assigned to it yet. I'm just saying, hey, look, this exists. And that way I can reference it when I when I define my function, so that later this code will know, oh, move target right, well, that's this function that got defined a little bit later. So it knows how to find the code.
That's quite a good tip, Pat. I've never realized you could actually do this.
Yeah, I encourage people always to consider forward declaring if they're not doing this in a module.
Yeah.
Sergey and I had this talk sometime back. And another thing you can do is if we were doing this in a module, say like local public equals, where public is just some table, you could also simply just do this, public dot, and then public dot. This will also late reference this whatever's going to be put in that variable. Right. So all this is telling Lua is saying, hey, I'm going to put something there. There's nothing in it yet, but by the time you get here the first time, it'll be filled in.
Yeah.
So it just otherwise people get into this chicken or egg scenario where they're like, I want to have a function called a function, but how do I how do I make it work?
Yeah.
I see this all the time. People are like, I can't do it. Yes, you can. It's very easy.
It's a good tip. Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And then I call it.
I'm a fan of the table method, because then you can add things as you go. You don't have to go back and check that you've done something, because what can sometimes happen is if you forget to declare the local, then you've created a global. And it may work, but you've got this global function lurking around to cause problems later on. So the public table is really good. It also means you can have two tables for functions, a public one and a private one, which gives
Right.
security.
I don't